And we always talk about three things. The first thing is coaching, the second is marketing, and the third is talent. So we always look to who do we admire right now and who do we want to become more like in our next evolution of our business.
Anytime I've seen a company go for 150K per month, it's because they made one really good hire.
When I hire salespeople, I give them like 48 hours to familiarize themselves with like the offer, listen to a bunch of calls.
And real estate's a huge opportunity that people want to be a part of. I think you got to know what you're selling. All right, guys. So today we have Ajay and Ben on the podcast, and they've been in Level Up for what, like 4 or 5 months now, and they are flipping land. So if you guys don't know who they are, Ajay helps, owns and runs Learn Land, and as well as has his own land flipping business. But we've been working really closely with them in the Level Up community. We're going to go into their story of how they've gone from doing 3 contracts per month to consistently now hitting 6 contracts per month in the last couple of months, and how they plan to do multiple 7 figures per year next year. And so we're going to dive into all this. And without further ado, Ajay, Ben, you guys are from Texas. You guys are crushing it. If you can give me a little bit of an intro of who you guys are. So Ajay, give me a little intro of who you are, so everyone knows what's your background briefly.
For sure. Yeehaw, everybody. This is who I am. Chandler said we're from Texas. So yeehaw, good morning.
Yeah, Cowboys.
Cowboys, baby. But we're not Cowboys fans. I'm getting married to a Packers girl. So got to be careful with that one. Life. Yeah. They made the playoffs this year, though. They made the playoffs. But yeah, no, super, super pumped to be here, Chandler. Thanks, man. High level. Ben and I have been in land for this is going to be our 4th year in it now. We've got a funny story. I'll let Ben tell a little bit of it as well. But man, we were running our own things for a little bit and eventually just realized we are like opposites of each other in the best way possible, aligned on all morals, values, ambition, but opposites when it comes to certain skill stacks. And so combined forces, we're young bloods, 25 going on 26, and our love and land biz, man, have been in it, haven't touched houses. I had like one rental I like toyed with and was like, this model sucks. I hate this. And then stuck with land. But yeah, man, we've just been flipping rural recreational lots. We've dabbled in infill, and now we're scaling this puppy up and are super excited to break it all out for everybody today. Ben, you want to break some out more than that?
Yep, absolutely. And so we have a team of 6 that we work with. So Ajay is more so the visionary of the business, and I'm more so the integrator. So on a daily basis, I'm working with the team, talking about daily problems that come up throughout throughout all of our business that we're doing. And then Ajay is casting the vision forward. So my job is to make sure that the ship is running in the way that Ajay is hoping that we're working in that direction to reach. So we started working with Chandler, I think towards the end of August. We reached out to him because we really liked the systems he had placed into his business. And we really wanted to learn from him how to make more educated decisions about our business. And we knew working with him, we would help dial in our KPIs, our metrics, and really understand our business even better. And that's been the case. And we're excited to talk even more about that here today.
Yo, let's dive in. So actually, as we were talking, I was thinking about the first time we met. And it was a Zoom call that we had that was set up by a mutual friend of ours. And I don't even remember. I remember I was in a Chipotle when we were talking. That's all I remember. And then I remember 2 weeks later, after the conversation, I didn't think anything of it, but I got a packet, like a big ass fucking white box just sent to my house. I was like, what is this thing? I opened it up and it was like a bunch of steak and like hamburger meat. And I was like, dude, this is sick. And I was like, oh, from Ajay and Ben. I was like, oh, that's so cool. So that was pretty funny. But I think that's a huge thing that you guys do really well, is build relationships super well. So I want you guys to talk about that. It's like, what kind of, because like that's what gives you guys success, a lot of leverage and having success quickly in business. So like, talk to me a little bit about like where your business was at then, and like what are some of the things you've done from like a relationship standpoint over that time to kind of get to where you guys are now.
Totally. So high level, when we started working together, Ben and I have always been pretty relational guys. We're so intentional with our network. We're not afraid to cut people out, not afraid to say no. I mean, like, you guys have all heard it before, but like when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else, right? So you got to be really intentional with who you keep in your circle, what's on your calendar, that type of stuff. We can always be better at that. But anyways, all that to say, we're big proponents of the whole who, not how principle, right? It's like, okay, who's going to get us to the next level? What roadblocks are we facing? And most particularly, like who just came out of that. A lot of times, like when you talk to somebody that's like too many levels above you, sometimes they don't quite remember what it was like to scale from like what you're struggling at to sort of where you're going. So, you know, like you had mentioned when we had just met up, we were getting about 3-ish contracts a month. And, you know, we'd heard of you through the grapevine, through sort of the CG network and community. And you've been in real estate, I think 2 more years than us. You're like 5 going on 6 years, right? And so it was like, you know, this dude's like pretty freshly just come out of some of the growing pains that we're coming into now. And I think when we got introduced by our mutual friend, it was like this guy's like the god of texting, right? So we connected about some SMS stuff, and it's funny too, Chandler, just because when we had that meeting, you dropped so many bombs on us. Like I felt like I was on Brad Lee's dropping bombs because you were just like going at it, man. And Ben and I were taking notes like crazy. We left and we were like, dude, we got some work to do. And literally within probably like what, Ben, within a week or two, I mean, probably within that next week, we had a contract locked up just by like double dialing. Like we didn't even know what double dials were when we had first met up with you. And that was like one of our biggest takeaways. And I brought that tactic into the land investing niche, which is like so simple in like sales and wholesaling and stuff. But anyways, Ben and I just remember sitting down and thinking like, yo, this dude Chandler is sick. Would love for him to like be one of the boys one day, be in our network. Right. And so, how do we provide him value? Well, like he knows more than us. I'm not sure who I could connect him with. I think we tried a couple email intros, but in the least, man, box of steaks always goes a long way, right? And so if we never did anything for you, I hope we filled your belly up at least once.
It's a good thing I'm not a vegan.
I think we actually checked.
You guys dodged a bullet.
Ben, you want to fill in any cracks there, though?
Yeah, to kind of expand on this, so something Ajay and I talk about a lot is what we do with excess cash in the business. And we always talk about 3 things. The first thing is coaching, the second is marketing, and the third is talent. So we always look to who do we admire right now and who do we want to become more like in our next evolution of our business. So we have 3 separate coaches right now. Chandler is one. We have a sales trainer who's been helping us a lot within the business. And we have a coach who's been helping us with our big subdivide projects. So we have 3 separate coaches for 3 separate aspects of our business. And then marketing, obviously that's always going to be an evolution and something we've been working closely with Chandler on to see how we can project that better for the coming quarter, year, 5 years, 10 years, right? How are we going to project that going forward? And then third is talent. We want to keep elevating our team to continue to get better, but to also bring on even more people to our team to keep elevating themselves. So as we have that excess cash, those are the 3 things we like to pour back into.
Okay. How did you guys come up with that? Because I love that. I've never heard, I think it's an intuitive thing that some people do naturally, but I've never heard anyone break it down so simply. It's like, if you have excess cash, obviously, you're going to pay yourself, but you're going to invest in coaching, which is investing in skills, which is the best thing to do until, you're making, you kind of hit your skill threshold. Maybe that will change. But I think right now, like, it makes so much sense. It's what we did too. And then like you said, marketing, and then you said the last one was talent. So how did you like come up with ranking those like, this is what I want to spend my extra money on, invest in? Is it just like a gut thing, or like, was it just something that you guys mutually agreed on? Like, how did you guys come up with that?
It's a great question. So I wish I had some like scientific formula for you or like a reference. This was a pure state of euphoria out of like an Ajay brain on a walk kind of a thing. I remember looking at, I think it was after one of our meetings, Chandler, where you basically asked us like, okay, what's your bottleneck right now? And I don't know that Ben and I had a clear answer for you. It was like, dude, I don't know, deals. Like I want more deals, but that's like not really, that's like a byproduct of other things. Right. And so as I sat down and I was just thinking, I was like, okay, like what resources are truly a constraint? And it came back to cash. And I was like, okay, why is cash a constraint? What would I do if I had excess cash? And I was like, well, there's skills that I don't quite understand. Who do you get skills from? Who, not how. I want to do coaching. I don't like the, DIY type stuff. I want to talk to people that are phases ahead of me that can help us implement. Obviously, marketing, it's a linear thing, right? I mean, it can be exponential depending on the channel and depending on implementation. But generally speaking, you spend more money, you get more leads, you convert the leads, you get more deals. Really simple.
Yep.
Oldest rule in the book. It's just science. It's just kind of how the world works. And then last, it's like, dude, what if you could hire people that were better than you at things, right? You look at who, not how through a different lens. It's not just like who can teach me things, but like who can I build into my business and my ecosystem that like maybe is eons ahead of me. So like, here's an example is like, what if I could afford to hire Alex Hormozy in my business, which like, obviously there's a bunch of things wrong with that statement. Do you think he'd scale the business faster with the same constraints than I can? Of course, right? So like a more realistic scale, who can you hire within your budget that's going to help you expedite, that maybe has some skills, has some knowledge, has some resources that like you don't necessarily have. I actually think it's like one of the biggest hacks of like the world in terms of like speed is like between coaching and talent, it's nuts how many like leaps and bounds you can make. Like if I just can essentially hire somebody for like $180,000, $200,000 a year, you can pretty much get any talent you want, generally speaking. And that one person can make you just like astronomical amounts of money. You know, if you have the best marketer in the world and the best sales director in the world, you can make hand over fist tens of millions of dollars. And those guys are typically only going to cost you like $150,000 to $200,000 a year, which is nuts.
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy. Like that's the thing I focus on the most is like, how can I, so that's actually a talk I was having. It's like, how can I just increase my revenue per employee so high where I can pay my average employee like $100,000 a year? And if I can do that, then like, that's what most people's highest paid employee is. So it's like, if that's my average, then your baseline for like success is just going to be so much higher, and your company is going to basically skyrocket up. And anytime I've seen a company go from like just small scale, like 50 to 100K, 150K per month, it's because they made one really good hire. And that's pretty much all it is. That just like, it's like usually a salesperson to move or remove them. And they just usually go from like 2-3 deals to like 4, 5, 6 deals a month, just from one rock star hire. And like, with that being said, like, how has this impacted you guys' business over the last, 12 months or so or 8 months or however long since you kind of came up with this framework? How has this impacted y'all's business?
Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I can kind of hop in here. Yeah. So something that's been really important for us is to figure out where's the best leverage for both me and Ajay to be. What seat is that? And that's something we've learned a lot from Collective Genius about, because we had to figure out what's our creative superpower, right? And so in order to get to that superpower, you almost have to let go of a lot of other things. So something I like to talk about is firing yourself from a job each quarter. So something you're doing within your business, you should be firing yourself from. So that's what I like to think about. What's the thing this quarter, the one thing that I'm doing that is not serving the business, that is holding the business back, right? So last quarter, the realization we came to together was I was handling all of TC and Dispo responsibilities. And we realized that that was holding back the business because I was at capacity for that. So I, as the integrator, did not want more leads coming through because I would have to do more TC and Dispo, which I was already maxed out at, right? So I was holding the business back. So Ajay and I said, okay, this is the fire we need to make right now, is Ben from Dispo and TC. And that's what we did. We just brought in a TC and Dispo hire, and it's been great already in the past week to elevate me to that higher position of understanding, okay, how can we build a better process and better implement better systems, which is exactly the creative genius that I want to be in on a daily basis. Right. And that was a big push we made at the beginning of 2023, was to get Ajay out of a lot of the day-to-day so that he could focus more on the relationships, focus more on the vision, have that time and that space to think as the visionary. And I think we've done that effectively and put him in a place that he can be at his highest leverage on a daily basis.
Can I add something?
Yeah. Go ahead. Go for it.
Yeah. So this is fire, Ben. I feel like sometimes when I hear you talk, I'm like, man, that's really good. I should write that down.
I was saying the same thing. I was like, this guy sounds like he knows a thing or two,
He definitely knows a thing or two and knows how to implement even better. And so just in the light of removing visionaries, it's so interesting because like there's like this pendulum in business, I feel like, where you're like super focused on one thing. So like a good example is in most wholesaling businesses, I'm sure you see this, like as people are scaling up, you're like super focused on like acquisitions, and then you have like a bunch of contracts and you have like no buyers. And then you're like all your attention goes like dispo. And then you're like, oh crap, I don't have any deals. And so you can kind of yo-yo back. You see this at like management level too, though. Okay. And so something we say is like, hey, if typically where the energy is in the business, where the focus is in the business is where you're going to see results. And so sometimes we'll be so focused on spinning up better dispo process, you all of a sudden see acquisitions start taking a hit. Like it's kind of softer and a little bit woo-woo. There's like obviously good metrics you can put in place, and there's a good accountability, but wherever the focus goes in the business is typically like what's going to be growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying. Right. And so like, you need to be focused. Like there is no staying the same. It's just like not how the business works, unfortunately, especially like, stuff's always changing. Marketing channels change, best practices change, competition gets fiercer. So be it. We adapt, we figure it out. Like real estate is always going to be bought and sold. There's never going to be a shortage of like a way to middleman, which you can call this what you want it, but you know, at some level, that's what you do as a broker, a wholesaler, a flipper, whatever. You're just adding value in a different way in the value stack. Now, being said, with removing responsibilities, particularly, you always have to be really careful because, man, you like build this resentment towards an activity and you want to get out of it so quickly that you just like, man, I wouldn't touch acquisitions with a 10-foot pole, but like typically the person who started the business is going to be the best when it comes to acquisitions. It's like, dude, sometimes I need to roll my sleeves up. We had this lead recently just like dropped off a cliff. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to call off my personal cell. I'm going to send a blue text, right? We love iMessage. And I re-engage the lead. And this guy's like a buy at 250, sell at 500. No improvements, guys. For you guys that don't understand land, you can typically buy 35, 50 cents on the dollar, sell for like 90 to 100% of market value, depending on the market. And so I'm like, dude, this is a $250,000 problem to solve. I can make a phone call on a Saturday morning, right? So like sometimes you kind of like need to reinsert yourself into some activities, either from auditing the process or from just like rolling up your sleeves sometimes because you are the best salesperson, or maybe you just have the most reps and experience. So you're going to see things through a different light than everybody else on the team. So anyways, that's like kind of a word of caution at the same time of like, you definitely need to fire yourself from things. Be sure to not do it too quickly like I did. And then you end up like wanting to almost resent the role and stay away from it when it's the stuff that brings money. Right. So, Ben, I think you're a lot better about this than I am, but there's always like a really good balance there of like, when you do fire, make sure you don't just like completely obliterate part of the business because you're like, great, I don't have to do it anymore. And it's like not being done well. And you don't have metrics in place to monitor success and performance. And then it just like falls off a cliff. And it's like, hey, Ben's not doing TC, but we just lost 4 contracts. Like, you know what I mean? Which is not happening, but like is definitely a risk if we don't monitor the process.
100%. I think that's actually one of the things when we first started working together that we talked about was like, Ajay, I know you're out of the business and not doing anything day to day, but you guys need help on the sales side. So like, let's go spend like a month revamping that, and then putting these processes in place, training the team, getting everyone up to speed, et cetera. And you know, it's still like a high dollar per hour activity because you have a lot more leverage when you're doing it the right way. It's like if you install a process that's going to be followed forever, that's going to work. You train a team member to do a task or do a job better than they were before. Let's just say twice as good. Their close rate, let's just say, was 10%, and you've helped them get their close rate at 20%. That's pretty high leverage because that happens forever, and it's very low maintenance to keep that consistent. So, was that like your experience when you jumped back into working through sales? Like obviously, like that one deal, you know, an hour, 2-hour phone call for a $250,000 deal. I think it's a no-brainer, dollar per hour for a lot of people. Most people in the world would do that. So what was your experience though jumping back into acquisitions? Because I think a lot of people do get burned out of it, and it's just like because like completely thing they just like man, thank God I don't have to make calls to sellers anymore. I just can't stand acquisitions, and it is like a thing that happens.
It is. In our experience, I think how we implemented me getting back in is like, it's super case by case in terms of me actually making the phone call. Like it needed to be like, people didn't understand what to do next. And I didn't quite know how to teach it yet because I hadn't done it enough times. Like, you know, when you can identify a problem, but you can't quite articulate the problem. And I'm like, I kind of just need to do this. And then after you get the rep, it's like, okay, here's kind of how I thought through this. Now I can put words to this. Now we can put process to this so that next time it's good. That's when I'll get back into it. But what we put in place to get our acquisitions manager from, you know, at the time, okay, so gosh, I'm trying to decide how into the weeds we want to get on this. You know, when we started working together, it was
go get in there. Really you're a gardener.
I think we realized we've got a pretty big failure point only having like one acquisitions manager. She like had a baby, right? Super normal human thing to do as a person. And so she like had her second kid. We found out kind of in like the end of the second trimester. And so it was like, shoot, man, got a couple of months to bring somebody in. We don't have good like training ramp up process. So, we were already hiring for a dispo role, so kind of like a salesperson personality type. And we were just like, we were going to do an overseas VA. So we had this Latin American VA queued up. And she was, solid. And we were like, okay, like we're just going to need to transition her to acquisitions because like we need to make something happen and we need somebody to like do these calls. And like she made money. Like we probably got about 6 figures in revenue in like the 10 weeks she was doing the role while our acquisitions manager was in maternity leave. But what I realized in that time is we don't have any training process for this role. And so the like stopgap was, okay, Ajay needs to do a call review at least once a week. Right. And so that was the process in place. And now I was listening to calls and being like, why the heck are we saying some of these things? Like, what are you doing? Why is your inflection upward at the end of every single sentence? I can't trust you with that. You sound like you're asking a question. What are you doing? So it's stuff like that that's like so simple to us that have been like doing it for years, have been in sales and understand it. Teaching like what a tie down is in sales, that type of stuff. And so it was a really good process we put in place. And then when our acquisitions manager came back, that's US based, she's been crushing with this, weekly training that we have now. But it made us realize we have some risk. Like Ben and I are like, okay, when we crank up lead quality and just sheer number of leads, we probably need a second acquisitions manager so we don't have that failure point to repeat again, right? Like you live and learn. We just have to make sure we like learn and implement, which we will as soon as like the leads are flowing how they need to, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's also really helped us because we have a sales trainer who comes in every once in a while to help us. Jenny Hudspeth, she's been fantastic. She comes into our meetings with our acquisitions manager, Veronica, and talks through, okay, this is what we're seeing in houses, but then also helps us apply it to land. So we had to revamp a lot of the questions that we had when it came to our sales process because we were asking certain questions, but maybe they weren't happening in the correct order, right? So that's where having Ajay, having Jenny in that room to really collaborate together to make it a very robust system that we put into place so that now when we have that going in to the land business, we know that we have a very good system that can be implemented with many different people, but also that we know will be successful for our business.
Yeah, I think that's like a really good point. I was just making a sales process with another guy in Level Up it was this week actually. And one of the things that, I do when I do this, and it's kind of one of those things I do naturally, but I basically, when he says like, what do you ask next? What's the next question you ask? And then they tell me what they would say. And I'm like, okay, I'm in my head, I'm thinking, well, what is this making, what position and frame is this holding? And what is this making the seller feel, think, and like, what could they potentially be like, where could this be moving the conversation? And then that's like, it's so critical to have the questions in the right order and saying them the right way. And that's like such a critical part of the process, because if you don't have that dialed in, then you could ask all the right questions in the wrong order and it's not going to do anything, because, that's just the truth. It's like, it doesn't make it. Sometimes it just doesn't make any sense. It feels like you're being interrogated if you do that, and that's not fun for anyone.
No, it is not. Yeah, I think that was a big thing we realized because we were doing stuff out of order. So Jenny, who we've plugged now, do
you have an example of something that like you did out of order and like it's kind of like now you're like, oh yeah, obviously I should have done that the other way around or something? Is there any like ones that are super obvious looking back on it, or good learning experiences?
I think something we were doing like early. Ben, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like we would ask like, oh, like, what are you going to do if you don't sell the property? Like before we even got into like any sort of like offer negotiation talk track type thing, or like, it'd be like, okay, you can't start like having them go through hypothetical scenarios before you've even talked to offer, right? We were doing some stuff on like the pitch side really early, like, hey, just so you know, we're like no closing costs, this, that, and the other, and it's like, dude, we haven't even done discovery yet. Why are we pitching? So some stuff like that in our sales process, we're like, okay, there's some work here that needs to be done. Whereas now it's like rapport, past, present, future questions, price anchor, and like the process has flow. We've got multiple questions to help in each sort of step to make sure it flows more naturally and like you don't sound like a robot, And something I tell people as we're onboarding our person that's helping us with dispositions, we had a call with her earlier today, and of course we've got a script, and I was like, hey, like Taylor, just so you know, like scripts aren't to put you in a box. That's like not the point, right? But what I do want you to know is it's a framework. because the thoughts that went into the questions here were to make all our steps after this easier and to boost your probability of success. Like that's what you're trying to do with every process you engineer in a business is I want to stack the probability of us doing business together in every way possible. Right. And this is the best way to do that. So anyways, just like the thing on scripts where it's like, yeah, scripts are awesome, especially when you're like brand spanking new, but they're a framework. Like, dude, it's okay to go off script as long as you don't like have some 40-minute conversation about dogs. Like,
yeah. Well, I would even say like, even on the script, like most scripts are going to be question based, right? So if you have a question, like obviously there's going to be some things that are transitions that you say and you have written out. It's like, it's the point of what gets said, not like necessarily the exact words that are said and how it's said is more, what's more important is how it's said. But on the question-based framework, you're going to basically ask the question and then the question should lead into a lot more things. And then there's kind of like, hey, we need to get these questions. Here's the rough order they need to go in. And like, you kind of just like weave your way through this conversation and you can't just like ask the question, not and they give the answer, ask the next question, then they answer it. And you just keep repeating that. That doesn't flow right. It has to be like this conversation and like, like people who've done sales like get this, but if you're training a new acquisitions person, I think that this is something that a lot of people have a fear around is like, no one's going to be able to do it as good as me. And that's true because initially you're going to suck at training them. And then they're, unless you hire you were very good at hiring, which if you're hiring for your first time, you're going to suck at it. So it's okay. But basically the person you're going to hire is not going to be as good as you at this. So if you're terrible at training, you don't have a process and the person you hired isn't that good, like, do you think it's going to work right away? Like, of course not. It's going to take a lot of work. Anytime you do something for the first time, it's hard. Like that's the reality of it.
Totally.
Even for the second time, it's hard.
It's so funny because Ben and I, again, we're like opposites in so many ways. And so I remember when we were training the Latin American VA, Ben, I hope it's okay to tell the story, but I like to joke, like when we're training, if it was up to Ben, we'd be training them for like a year. And if it was up to me, we'd have no training at all. Like it's, and both of those are extremes, right? But like when I hire salespeople, like even on the high ticket side, I give them like 48 hours to familiarize themselves with like the offer, listen to a bunch of calls. And I'm like, cool, best way to learn is to get reps. Let's get into it.
Start dialing, baby.
I'm like, yeah, second, third day, like hit the phones, baby, let's go. On our side, I just remember we'd removed me from a lot of the day to day. And I remember it being like working day 7 and me being like, Ben, has she hit the phones yet? And you were like, no, we're like almost there, And I was like, almost. Bro, she's been on payroll for like a week. What do you mean? Like nobody's doing this. We need her on the phones. And
dude, it's funny because I am like the worst trainer I think ever. Like if you want me to onboard someone, dude, I'm horrible. I literally am horrible. I'm incapable. Not really. I gotta force myself to be capable, but I am like the worst. And like if it's, I'm great at coaching, but I'm onboarding. Oh my gosh, I'll make an SOP that's dialed, but like I can't meet with someone twice a day. I just suck at it. I just don't know why. It's just hard for me.
Your ability at hiring then make it easier to train because you've done so much hiring?
Exactly. I basically, my hiring philosophy is I want to hire someone who I don't need to onboard. I say, all right, here's the business, understand it. And then like, here's your objective. And like, what do you need in order to do that? And then I'll teach them whatever they need. And then that's it.
That onboarding
that's what I like to do.
It sounds great in theory, but I'm not going to lie, it scares me. I'm like, turnover in the first month's like 80%.
Well, I think so like I've had a lot of success doing it this way. There are shortcomings that
sure
you definitely miss, like just like small things. Like you got to make sure your expectations are dialed in of like what you expect. That's a critical one that just has to be done in onboarding, because if you mess that up, it's just like really hard to reset it, especially with someone who's like a high performer. So like having that geared into the hiring process before even onboarding starts is like a must. And like having all the outcomes that you want for them within like the hiring process. And then you get a really good feel if you give them like a homework type assignment where it's like, hey, here's the biggest problems we've been dealing with. Like this is like the higher level role. Like, hey, here's the biggest problems we've been dealing with marketing or with acquisitions over the last 90 days. How would you fix it? And then you listen to what they would do. And then a lot of times what they tell you, if it's someone who's really good, and usually the people who I pick to hire, I'm like, I never thought of any of that. That's amazing. So I like you. And then like basically then from me, my only thing that I need to do before I onboard them, this is what I've done in the past, is just like call them, talk to them about, okay, what things do you need to know in order to like start to be able to make an impact as fast as possible? Because here's your outcome. You know our problems, you know our situations. I'll give you more information like as we go through the onboarding process and like once we've like agreed to work together. But like, what else do you need? Like, what do you need to know? What do you want to know? And then I just teach them that, and then I just put one call a day on the calendar for like a week or 2 weeks, and then usually it's pretty good from there.
That's great. That's great. I feel like I'm learning on this interview. This is
maybe not, but it's important. You gotta like, that's a good question. You gotta like, if there's the book Buy Back Your Time, literally just like, I think it's chapter 5, 7, and 11. Those chapters, I literally just copied everything he said and I just did it like exactly. Like, it's like a perfect SOP in the book. And the most important thing is to be able to hire great talent. I know you guys said it's a cheat code, and it really is, but the cheat code is when, and you also said one other thing is where you focus in the business is like what gets improved, but where you see you move really quick and you have a lot of competitive advantages is when you have 2 or 3 people focused on, or 4 or whatever it is, focused on different parts of the business, and they're all focused on their own path. And then you just have someone who's like managing them all and helping them, basically enabling them to move forward in their directions. That's when you can move a lot faster, because then you don't have to spend all the time in one spot, or maybe 2 spots, or 1.5 spots, or whatever it is.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I really like that piece about expectations as well in the hiring process. I think that's something we learned with our most recent hire, was we set expectations with dispositions that calls would be outside of normal working hours. And that was just something we needed with the role. That was not something we had first established when we had hired for Dispo. Mm-hmm. So it's almost harder to retroactively make that an expectation after you hire first without that being an expectation. And that's something I like to talk about when people ask me, how do you find an integrator? I like to talk about how you almost need to place someone who's not right, because I think that's something we learned from that first process, is we failed in not setting that expectation, and then we learned to be better that second time. And I think it's the same thing with the integrator. You place someone who is maybe not right for the role in the integrator seat, you at least understand what kind of responsibilities and expectations are there and need to be met for that integrator for you to find that right person who can fit in that seat. Yeah. And I think that applies to many different roles, but just in the conversations I have with a lot of visionaries who are looking for integrators, that's what I like to say, is just put someone there temporarily to see if there's something you can learn from them being in an integrator seat and helping you as you're a visionary. And then kind of go from there and move forward and use that learning to help you get better and understand what kind of dynamic you're looking for out of that relationship.
Yeah, I think it's a really good advice. And like, the biggest thing is like, just, you don't know what you want. And it's like dating. If you dated one girl in your entire life, like, you don't really know what you want. You gotta have a lot of experiences in order to like kind of hone in your buy box. So the same thing with like this is like, when you're hiring someone for the first time, do what Ben says, like just get someone doing the task, and then like you'll figure out real quickly if they're going to cut it or not, and you'll know within the first week, like for sure. And then you'll figure out, oh, okay, well, this is why it didn't work out, so I'm gonna definitely think a little bit harder about this next time. And with that being said, is if you're going to hire someone who's, you know, this is your first like big hire, don't give them this huge, incredible, especially if it's your first hire, this huge, incredible like opportunity where it's going to tie you in forever, that kind of stuff. It's important to just like have like expectations. Like, if you hit this in 90 days, you can get more pay, if that's like what the agreement is. And then like same thing, maybe like you want to have like a 1 to 2 year plan to ramp them up to something where it's longer term, like a true like long term thing. If you're looking for like someone who is your yin to your yang, unless you guys have you've already been working together for a while. Basically, you just want to date, is what I'm saying. Before you just bring someone in. And,
totally. Yeah. And so something that Ben and I have learned recently too is in light of just like hiring, like first of all, it's sales and marketing just on another side, right? I think Alex and Layla Ormozio are the first to introduce that idea to me, how it's like basically another funnel that you want to keep going. And so something I think people do so poorly when it comes to setting expectations is putting those in the job description. Like, just post that in your freaking job description, right? Like if you're worried about wasting time on interviews with people who don't want to work weekends, put that weekends are in the job description. And yeah, you're going to get less applications, but they're going to be more qualified applicants, meaning more aligned to what you actually need out of the role, right? And so that was a huge hack for us. Another one was like, in that posting, you can sort of pick who you want to attract. Like, I remember the first time I ever posted a job description, it was for an acquisition manager role, and it was just the most corporate like sounding thing you could ever imagine. And I was like, why is everybody I'm talking to wanting like a stable salary and benefits and like all this stuff? And looking back at it now, I remember looking at that job description and wanting to like vomit because it just sounded like corporate BS speak. Whereas
that's
now,
such an important thing.
Yeah, we literally dumbed it down. So I stole a lot of it from my buddy Drew, but Ben and I have dumbed down our job descriptions to where we're like, we need like a 5th grade reading level. Like, it's literally like, you will be in charge of phone calls to people who want to buy land. You know what I mean? It's like, how simple can I make this sound? Like, I want a 5th grader to understand that. And that's been so good for us. One more thing I want to hit home on is, if you're like looking at like your first like 1 to 3 hires, so many people try to just like straight up replace themselves. They're like, oh, like I need another Ajay, I need another Ben, I need another Chandler. It's just BS. You're not going to get another you. And I don't want to set like limiting beliefs on hiring, but like something I'm committed to is like, dude, if I want to replace myself from like a sheer performance perspective, dude, I'm a rainmaker. I'll make it happen. Like, Ben's a rainmaker. He'll make it happen. Right. But like, to replace ourselves, it's going to take like 3 to like 8 people to actually replace your stuff. And that's okay. You need to understand that like, it gets more specialized the bigger the company gets, which is like cooler from like oh sweet, this person's role is like more and more specialized. Your first couple hires might be slightly more generalist, and that's okay. But don't expect them to just be like a 1-for-1 replacement. Otherwise, I promise you'll be really disappointed and think everybody's just bad.
Dude, you're going to have to give up like 50% of the company if it's a 1-for-1. I mean, and even then you don't want a 1-for-1 for that deal. That's a bad deal. But to the point that you're making is, yes, that is, and buy back your time. I know I'm promoting the book, but they have a replacement ladder, and it talks about replace like administrative tasks first, then replace. I think the next one is, I think it's marketing. No, it's ops. No, I don't remember what it is, but go read the book. The book is great. I can't remember right now. I slept 3 hours last night and woke up to go skiing this morning, so my brain's dead. But I did want to say something. I did want to say something about the job descriptions thing. Is not only make it simple and clear of like what they're going to be responsible for, but also what I got from Layla and what I've done in the last couple that have worked really well for getting people who basically want the same things as like the culture of the company. Is like talking about the impact that someone will make by having this role and like what kind of impact they have for the company, as well as like the opportunity it provides, this position provides. So it's like, if you're having a lead manager, someone who's going to be doing follow-up calls, calling crappy new leads, and maybe doing some cold calling in the CRM, you're going to basically tell them that, hey, this is an amazing opportunity to get into real estate. If you have sales experience and you want to get started in real estate, this is the best way to do it. Like something like that in the job description. And like, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is perfect for me. And then you're going to get someone who's, because they want to get into real estate, they're going to be hungry. So you're going to use adjectives like that. You're going to get someone who wants to do this. Like, this is something that they want to do. So even if it's hard, they're willing to go through trials and tribulations because it's something they really want to do. And real estate's a huge opportunity that people want to be a part of. So honestly, like, I've never had trouble like finding like commission only sales reps or people who will work for like less than maybe like what you would typically pay someone from a base salary perspective, just because they want to be a part of real estate. So I think like you got to know what you're selling. You know, we're selling the dream here.
Yeah.
The real estate dream.
Dude, but you got me sold. You got any openings in the acquisition manager role? Like, what's up?
Dude, always hiring, bro.
Always be closing on both sides.
That's right, dude. The subtle art of closing. No, that is one thing though, like running the education company, is that I've started to like really hone in on, is like how to like sell at scale, which is basically marketing. Grant Cardone said marketing just sales at scale. And I think it's a great definition of it. But it's like, how do you like captivate an audience to like believe, not only just believe, but like to truly like get your message of like what you do for people, package it the right way, and like present it in such a way that people are like, oh wow, like that's resonates with me. That's such an amazing thing. It's like that's like it's a hard thing to do. It's like that's one of the biggest things that I've been trying to learn. And with that question, it's like, how do you guys go about learning new skills? Because you invest a lot in coaching. You obviously have learned a lot. You guys have a good head on your shoulders. You guys are coaching people. What do you guys do to learn and develop as for yourselves?
Ben, you want to start with that one?
I feel like it's a daily process for me. I like to talk a lot about my priority stack, right? So right now, gym is number 1, business is number 2, and pickleball is number 3, right? So when it comes to what I'm doing on a daily basis, I don't have like specific learning goals, but I know if I'm doing those 3 things, I know that I'm learning on a daily basis, right? I'm learning how to get more healthy, get a better body, how to build a better business, how to be a better leader for the team. And then number 3 is just having fun. We're here to have fun at a core basis of being human. We want to enjoy our lives, right? So having that fun, creative outlets after you're done with work and working on everything that you're trying to accomplish is just an added bonus, a cherry on top. So I just like to think about the priority stack, and I know that I might not have intentional things that I have to be learning about. That's also just kind of my integrator speak talking, where I'm just like always going to be doing stuff on a daily basis and learning throughout the execution of the business and helping our team become better leaders on a daily basis. Then the learning is the action, and I'm in a big season of learning through that action. And especially the conversations that I'm having with mentors, with other integrators, with other visionaries, with other business owners, networking just out within the DFW area. It's a continual daily process that I'm always learning. And I think just being intentional about the relationships we have has really set me up to learn on a daily basis. And I'm really excited about the season I'm in right now, and cool with how that priority stack is settling for me right now.
I like the priority stack.
I do too. Yeah, I want to add to that. So obviously, like Ben and I are very different in how we learn, how we execute, how we think. With me being more visionary, this is going to be funny. For me, like actually, Chandler, you gave me this advice of like when you have white space, like when you go for a run or doing cardio, just like thinking, walking, whatever, just like thinking about like what is my bottleneck right now. And so for me, it's like a big problem that I'm trying to solve pretty frequently, right? Like, okay, what's the bottleneck? And I pick something between, is it, what's the bottleneck in our land business right now? Ben and I obviously have our weekly stoplight report now. Also plug Level Up. Thank you for helping us set that up. Has been really, really good for us. But we're revisiting like, what's the bottleneck? And then within that, there's like, okay, cool. That's cool. I know it's leads. What does that mean? Okay, we need to get like this vendor going. We need to dial in this marketing. We need to get this ad spend, blah, blah, blah. Who do we need to talk to sort of move that forward? So it's like, what's the big picture issue? How do we like boil that down into like what needs to happen next? And then like, what does that execution look like? Which we'll dial into like in our weekly rocks meeting where we're like, all right, what are the weekly deliverables to make sure we're like making it happen? All that to say though, like for me, it's a lot of like, number 1, big picture, what's the bottleneck? Number 2, like where are we going? Right. So you like need to, as the visionary, choose what problems you're solving today. And then what problems do you want to solve in the future? You know what I mean? Like, is it, hey, do I want to solve the problem of like converting ad spend through Facebook ads? Like, is that a problem I want to solve? Yeah, it is, right? Versus like, do I just want to do like ringless voicemails? No. You know what I mean? But you have to like choose that problem that you want to solve essentially. Something that's so interesting too in this season, I feel like everybody that kind of goes on this entrepreneurial journey, just like you start off and literally like nothing, right? Like you're just a freaking idiot. I'm like still an idiot, but in the sense of like, there's so much knowledge out there. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface, right? Like we're all just getting started in this game of business, which is cool because if we can compete at this level, just like getting started, like we're going to be having a lot of fun in our like 40s, 50s, 60s, I think. All that to say though,
I'm having fun right now, dude. I don't know about you guys. I'm having a good time.
I'm having a great time. But where I'm getting at is like from a knowledge stack, you sort of get all the foundations from like the core, like I think PBD calls it like the 20 books everybody reads, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, Think and Grow Rich, all the stuff with like Rich and Millionaire in the title basically, right? But it's the books everybody reads and it's like, oh, this is so interesting. And that'll get you, PBD always says like that gets you to like the 10, 20 grand a month, right? Now you kind of got to reinvent yourself and read different books and like, and so with that, it's funny because Ben and I have talked about how we're just reading far fewer books this year. Like it's not about just absorb all the info. It's like, hey, what do we actually need to learn? Our focus for a lot of 2023 was leadership because it was the first time we were leading a team. And you just see all this intangible ROI and like, sure, I can, read John Maxwell, or I can talk to like smart leaders like you and Jenny Hudspeth and other people in our lives that like know how to teach us to lead well, and like just talking to the who's, figuring out what our problems are that are high leverage, talking to the who's, and then implementing that in our lives has just been insane for us this year. So it's like less the books and more like the people, the masterminds, and then like just straight up like getting the reps, dude. Like, how do you learn how to lead? You got to be a bad leader at first. Like I was a crap leader before I was like an above average leader. You know what I mean? Now I would consider us great, like definitely above average, but I sucked for a long time before I got there. Right. So that was super long. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, dude, you're good. Basically, like there's always like, I think what you're basically talking about is like the way you guys are learning. If I could round this out in like a short, concise, maybe 2 sentences. I don't know. Hold me to it. It's like you guys are learning from just the act of doing. Like we have this core foundational knowledge that's like, I understand how business works. I understand how to make money wholesaling, flipping land. I understand how to talk to stuff. I understand the core fundamentals of the business. I understand how this all works and like kind of what's the purpose of sales and business and all those things we're doing. So like in order for me to actually grow, I just need to backfill my knowledge with execution. And then that's going to give me the experience to basically level up to the next level. So like you guys, and this is like where I feel like I've been at too, is like basically in the wholesale business kind of plateaued around like 300K a month. And that's mainly because of deficiencies in hiring, deficiencies in leadership, and hiring leaders. And like that's like a big thing to do for the first time. And when you just have to spend a lot of time learning it. Like you got to pay for coaches who have done it and who do it really well to become like, it's a different skill set to manage and lead someone who's gonna be completely autonomous and make their decisions on their own and have like their own ideas for how that department should be ran, versus someone who's like making sales calls or is your executive assistant, whatever it might be. And so like you have to really evolve the way that you do it. And the only way to learn that is by learning by trial by fire and screwing up for a lot of time, and then like learning from other people. And there's really like no better way to do it than by just taking action. Like totally. You're going to suck. And then one day you're gonna look up and be like, all right, so now if I want to hire a marketing director, it's really easy because I know exactly how to do it. And now it's cake. I can just do it like that. I know what to look for. I know what not to look for, know what to ask. It's just intuitive. And so I think that's really important. But the only reason you know that is because of experience, not because of anything else.
Agreed.
One of the questions I have for you guys on this is, this is the first thing that came to my mind, is when you know the only thing that's going to make you guys more money is going to be doing more of what you're already doing or implementing the ideas that are in your head. How do you guys deal with that situation?
Ask that question again. Sorry.
Okay. Question. Exactly, you feel like the situation you guys are in. It's like, how do you go from transitioning to knowing like when to take the foot off the gas from just like learning and reading all the books and like talking to people to just like making the transition and be like, okay, in order for us to actually make more money, we just need to go and like work.
So here's a really good, again, I'm quoting Hormozi's a lot, man. I'm a really big Layla fan just because we're so different. Like I like probably am more similar to being Alex, which makes me more interested in Layla's content, which is so interesting. Mm-hmm. Something that just was so clear for me the first time I heard it, like, you hear something once and you just like live by that thing forever. So clear to me was when things are good, like when they feel easy and good, you freaking throw your foot on the gas, right? Mm-hmm. And when things are like really freaking hard, like stuff's falling apart, things are breaking, that's when you need to like slow down for a sec, right? And so for Ben and I think our Q4 was really interesting because we were like 100% SMS pretty much. And then like A2P sort of kicked us in the nuts. Sorry. I know you said keep it PC. But
I mean, kicking in the nuts, dude, you can do that. I mean, our president said worse before. Past president.
I'll keep it good there. The point being, like, That was the hardest thing that happened to us, and we just like, screw it, we'll just drop like 25,000 pieces of mail, and then we like consistently still bought 5 deals a month. For like November and December, we were getting contracts signed, and it was like, like you get a boost of confidence out of that. Anyways, my point being, things were hard because we were like, shoot, we need to shift, so we slowed down, right? Most people, I feel like, would have just been like, okay, cool, I'm going to switch to cold call, or I'm going to switch to RVM. I need to keep the lights on right away. Da 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 da. And Ben and I are like, dude, we got good inventory. We got a good team. We got a good process. We're in a healthy cash position. Let's think, because we have a really good way to make a smart, educated decision for the company, right? And so things were hard for a second, so we slowed down. And that's the barometer for us, I think, is when things feel easy, I'm like, all right, Ben, you know what that means? Spend more money, baby. It's too easy. We got our value stack, right? Do we need a new coach? Are we hitting the ceiling? No, we just need to spend more money on marketing. Great. Make it rain. We just dropped 35,000 mailers this week. Like, make it rain. Things are easy right now. Right. And so that's sort of how we think about it. And when things are hard, it's okay, let's take a step back. What do we either need to slow down on, or what do we need to learn that we're not doing right now? And so that's kind of been the barometer. Ben, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll also just kind of add that at the beginning, when you're just starting out as an entrepreneur, you need the mentors, but sometimes you don't always have access to those mentors because they cost money, right? So sometimes the best mentors are free, and that's through the library. I've spent countless hours at the library and with library books before we had the cash that we could deploy to spend that time with in-person or virtual mentors. So I think of it almost like a seesaw, where when you're starting out, you need to use your time and less money. And then once you get more flush with cash, you can spend more money and less time. And you can deploy that time in other ways, whether that's more action in the business or just doing other things that give you life and value outside of business, which I think can help to transcend you into an even further ability within business as you're spending less time within it, because you have more clarity, more mental clarity to think on the higher level concepts. So that's first. And then also I think a lot about this concept of breathe in, breathe out. As you're consuming, you're thinking about what you need from the consumption in order to produce at the end, right? So breathe in, breathe out, take the information in, but also implement it in a way. You don't want to only be reading and not implementing. You want to be reading and taking action. I like to talk about how there are certain books in my life that I've read. I call them Quake books. Quake books force me to take action. One of the most important ones was Courage is Calling by Ryan Holiday. I read that book and I was like, man, I have to start building courage as a muscle. And that's something I think about literally daily, is building the courage muscle. I was honestly nervous to come on this podcast today because this is my first podcast I've ever done, right? But it took courage to push past that and just say, you know what, I'm just going to show up and do my best, and my best is going to be enough, right? But I think about how I can continue to build that courage muscle by doing things that require courage and require me to push myself past my comfort zone. And a lot of that comes back to those Quake books that I read when I was in that season of only having the free mentors that I needed. I still think about that knowledge that I gained in that time because those concepts come up over and over again. But now I just get to discuss that with people. Now I get to talk with Ajay and Chandler about these concepts that I only had running through my own brain. And now I get to do that with people over a podcast. So I think that's really cool how you get to kind of shift that as you evolve as a business owner. And I think that's kind of how it changes in terms of how you consume and produce as you're elevating as a business person.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, definitely Seesaw is 100% accurate. Also, side note, I never would have guessed that this was your first podcast. So kudos to you for having I don't even know, like, what, you get the butterflies in your stomach. Before every wrestling match I used to have, I'd get like butterflies in my stomach. And then, like, as soon as you start, like, shake hands and the whistle blows, you're like, okay, this is game time. But every time, dude, I'd be like walking around like, man, I gotta take a shit. Like, I don't know. That's what happened to me. So, like, match day, I'd take like I would go to the bathroom way too many times. But no matter who I was wrestling, whether I was wrestling the worst guy in the gym or wrestling the best guy in the state, it didn't matter who I was wrestling. I was always nervous. So, but I think nerves are good. There's actually a study that I read like a year ago. I don't remember all the specifics of it, but it basically said people who see nervous energy as like a good thing, as a positive thing, it increases their performance in sports. And people who see it as a bad thing, like anxiety, it like cripples them and like really decreases them. So I think it's kind of a helpful topic. So like, I don't know. Anytime I feel the nerve, like I want to feel that, 'cause I don't feel the nerves too often anymore.
Yeah.
Probably the only time, I don't know what about you guys, but like the only time I feel it is if I go on a stage and speak in front of like hundreds of people, maybe like 1,000 people. Like I've never spoken in front of 1,000 people. Like 400 or 500 people is the most I've spoken in front of on a stage, and like that like gets me amped up. And I'm like, okay, this is like game time. Or the only other time I get it is like if I'm like really close to dying. Yeah, you know, like outside in the mountains.
Oh,
like not like, you know, gun to my head, but
he's like, you know, like 8th Red Bull that day. I just like feeling my heart flutter a little bit.
Dude, you know, today might be one of those days. 4 hours of sleep. I might need some caffeine.
So a really good expression that Ben and I like to say too is like when you're nervous about something, it means you care about it, right?
Exactly.
So, like, yeah, it's like a good.
I don't care about this at all.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Something to think about though is like lean into that though. Like if maybe public speaking is something that still gets you nervous, maybe that means you need to do more of it. Like maybe there's a part of your brain like that's a level of growth that's like super interesting that you need to lean into. And so it's like, dude, like get yourself booked, hire somebody to get you booked on stuff, and like or hire an agency and they'll get you on stages real quick, and it'll be revenue producing. You get to travel, which you like to do. Like I don't know. But I don't know if you're nervous about something, it means you care about it. If you care about something, do more of it, in my opinion, right? Chase that thrill, baby. Stop drinking so many Red Bulls. No, I'm just kidding.
Dude, Red Bull gives me wings, man. It builds my lats. It builds my lats up. I don't have to even work out anymore. I just drink enough Red Bull that like my lats just start to grow out, so I can just like kind of flap them around.
This guy.
No, but for real. Okay. One other thing that I think that I noticed about you guys, and specifically, I know Ben's posting it. Ajay, I know you're doing it, but Ben posts it like all the time on his story. Not that you've been posting it recently too. But like, this dude Ben is in the gym like 3 times a day. Like I see 4 a.m. pickleball time, 6 p.m. leg day. I'm in the video, I'm suffering, and like I'm like, dude, like tell us about this. Like, didn't you gain like 50 pounds over a year or something?
Yeah, this was just a campaign I kind of had at the beginning of 2023. I was 155.
You running for
president? Different type of campaign. But I just said I didn't want to be the skinny dude anymore, because I'd been the skinny dude my whole life, and I just wanted to walk in a room and people feel my presence.
And they fear you?
No, not necessarily that. It's just I understood that
Keep going, bro. You want to walk in a room and people, you want respect.
Yeah, exactly. People like understand when you like put in a lot of discipline and show up every day and try to improve yourself.
For sure.
So, and it's always been something that I've struggled with, is to eat a lot of food. So like, honestly, that's much harder than the gym. The gym is just showing up every day, and that's easy for me with my natural, that's just my wiring as a person, is I like to show up every day and just be consistent. The hard thing is the food. So I have to eat a ton of food, 3,500 to 4,500 calories a day. And I consider
that's a lot of food. That's a lot of food, dude.
Exactly.
Do you feel bloated?
It's a lot of food. It depends. You know, it's like 1,000 calories per meal. So over time, your stomach
4 meals
becomes
a day, bro.
3 to 4. So your stomach becomes acclimated to eating that much food.
Yeah.
So it's just,
I mean, that's how much I eat in a meal, but I only eat 2 a day.
Yeah.
Like
so
2,500
it's a lot
a day.
of food. Yeah, so your body's processing that and having to get through it. But, you know, you just feel a lot better when you're working out on a daily basis. It compounds in other aspects of life. I know when I'm pushing myself to the brink in the morning at 6 a.m. at the gym, it's going to be a lot easier to do that in business if I have to work a 12-hour day afterwards, because the hardest part of the day is already completed at 6 a.m. in the morning at the gym, right? So everything else there is just icing on the cake, right? So I know that starting at the earliest time when my frequency is the highest and when I'm least likely to not want to go, because you get to 6 p.m. it's a lot harder to hit the gym. But if you wake up at 5 and you hit it, you don't have to think about it the rest of the day. But it's going to be on your mind if you're thinking about it throughout the day and you haven't gone yet. So
that's true.
I like to do it in the morning. And I think Ajay has seen that a lot recently. as well as he started to hit it a lot in the morning, and the compounding effects that you see from the rest of your life when you do that as well.
Dude, yeah, well, okay, because I like the health topics. I do a lot of exercise as well. What do you eat to eat 4,000 calories a day? That's a lot of food, dude.
So like Ramon talks about, you want to start with the protein and then backfill, right? So I start with 1,000 calories, and that's 100 grams of protein in the morning for breakfast, and then from there I just backfill the calories.
Smoothie grilled chicken, like just putting grilled chicken in a blender with a little milk. So
it's ground turkey, 4 eggs, an apple, and electrolytes.
That's a protein packed breakfast.
It's a pound of ground turkey. I don't know if he said that. A pound.
He did not say that, I don't think. Are you hiding? Dude, okay. That's a lot. You know, I think that people will be like, that's disgusting. But honestly, it's so easy because if you like it and it makes you feel good, then I'd eat the same stuff every day. Like right now, I'm on a burrito kick. So I'm just making getting tortillas and doing a half pound of ground beef, making a tortilla for lunch, making one for dinner, and then having some snacks in between, and then that's my day. But if you're eating the same thing every day, it makes your life simpler and you feel better. But
exactly.
So you count your calories. You actually eat 4,000 calories a day. That's insane,
dude. I've watched this guy pound 5,500 in a day.
Dude, I ate 13 slices of pizza the other day in one sitting, which is almost 2 pizzas. But but I also just walked for 7 hours and climbed a mountain, and I had skis on my feet. So I burned 3,000 calories. But you just do that on a regular day. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, I need some hacks, bro. Because when I start training for these long days, I burn about 4,000 to 4,500 calories a day. And I just start to wither away and get extremely lean. Which is not about, I'm not complaining to be shredded, but the problem is I start to get weak because I don't have enough calories in my body, because if I want to eat 5,000 calories a day, I have to eat junk food and Chick-fil-A and stuff like that, because it's the only way I can get that many calories.
Dude, Panda Express.
Dude, Panda is fire.
Ben, tell them about it.
Have you guys had kava?
We do have kava bias as well, yeah. But the Panda, you can get a bigger plate with triple orange chicken, and you're getting 1,600 calories, and then basically 80 to 100 grams of protein right there, which is great.
Dang.
So you're able to get a lot of protein, and then backfill the calories if you're trying to put on more size. And then if you're trying to go the other way, you can do grilled chicken teriyaki, which is really high in protein and low in calories. Mm-hmm. So you can hit that if you're trying to go on the more lean route. So you have both options when it comes to Panda, which is really nice. And I like to think a lot about efficiency. And if you can go to one place for two different actions, that makes my life a lot simpler.
Dude, I agree, bro. The one thing I am the worst about is doing anything in my personal life that requires going to the post office, doing my laundry, folding my laundry, all this, going to the mail, this stuff sucks. I put it off. Dude, my license plate was expired for 6 months because I was too lazy to go to the DMV. It took me getting a ticket. I drove across the country. Dude, license plate is expired for 5 months. I drove all the way to Lake Tahoe. I got a ticket 5 minutes from the house in Lake Tahoe, and it was $200. And I was okay, I probably should go to the DMV when I get back. But then I had to drive all the way back across country and hopefully not get a ticket. Didn't. But yeah, so it took me a while to get that figured out. So I'm a procrastinator when it comes to personal life stuff, and so are all my friends, which is not a good thing.
I feel that hardcore. I think I tell Ben so it was tough for me to get my health habits dialed in, because I finally started hitting the gym December is when I started getting in a groove of it. Because I get overwhelmed by options. So when we moved here, it was the weather's nice. I have a road bike. I like jumping rope. I like going for walks.
Road biking is awesome.
It's so fun. I haven't figured out where to bike here yet though, but it's one of those things that you need to accept that you're going to have some bad routes before you find the good ones. Right. So you kind of need to go, or you can go roll with some of those 9 a.m. crews that go from the bike shops. And, anyways, in the first couple months we moved here, because it was so nice out, 70s and 80s, I just had literally analysis paralysis of oh, what should I do to work out? It's so stupid. Right. But I literally would think about it so much that I just like wouldn't do stuff sometimes, and it's like terrible, you know. And then it started getting colder out, and I just like removed all the decisions, and I was like, I'm just gonna wake up and go to the gym. Like that's just what I'm gonna do. And so like the past month, it's been super easy for me to just like roll out of bed, pound a glass of water, like get dressed. Ben and I have the same outfits now. Well, not like okay. So like
you guys wear onesies together to the gym.
Well, we've got these golf polos, right? That are our land company, Assets for Acres. And then we got,
which is a sick name, by the way.
Thanks, dude. My girlfriend
Double A, bro,
came up with it. I'll tell you actually a really funny story. Side tangent. When we were starting the biz, I had the worst name in the world that I was about to do for this, dude. It was like I was trying to go with the whole like cash for gold type vibe, you know. And I came up with cash.
Like a pawn shop, man.
It was cash for crop with the number 4 in it. It's so bad, literally so bad. And the URL was available, of course. And so I was like, yeah, this is kind of sick. And then I was texting Erin about it, and she was like, I'm not going to lie to you, it's pretty trash. And I was like, what would you do? And she threw out a couple, and the one that stuck was Assets for Acres. And I was like, oh, run it back, let's go. And so
run it back.
I gotta
get. You could ask ChatGPT to come up with names now for you, but they didn't have that back then.
This was back in
the old days. Back in the old days.
All you kids with your AI now, it's so easy for you.
Dude, yeah, so I didn't even. Yeah, go ahead, keep going.
I was just gonna say we've got Assets for Acres tanks now that we wear at the gym every day, which is sick because it makes it super easy to like not think about what you need to wear. Like I don't know, it's just removing those decisions in your life that just make it easier. I think every single day.
Dude, I only wear Lululemon t-shirts that are either. This is the only blue one I own. I own like 6 black ones and like 6 or 7 gray ones. And I own a bunch of Lululemon shorts. And then I have a couple pairs of pants, and that's it.
So easy.
Yeah, dude. I literally traveled with my entire... So I'm about to throw away way more stuff, and I'm going to have like 20 sets of clothes, and that's it. Because I'm going to be traveling around from Airbnb to Airbnb. And it's so nice to just throw everything away or give it all away. Because you just own... I own way too much gear, so I'm going to get a storage unit for all my gear. But like, because I got a road bike, I got a mountain bike, I got like 2 sets of skis, I got all my climbing gear, way too much stuff. It's like one of those things where you're like, oh, I'll stop buying all this stuff because they're all just one-time investments. But then like all your friends do every hobby as well, and you just keep buying all the gear. So what I'll do, Ajay, is and I'm not gaslighting you, is I'm going to ride my bike from Denver down to Dallas.
Bro, get out of here. No way.
Dude, I did ride my bike almost to Kansas. We were 10 miles short.
Really?
Yeah, one day.
No way.
190 miles. The only reason we didn't...
Nebraska?
What?
You just like went through all of Nebraska? Or like what's the...
Colorado, just like Denver, just all eastern Colorado until Kansas border. We got 11 miles short. The reason we didn't finish is because all of our lights on our bikes died, which is sad. And it was really cold and it was really dark and we were all beat and we didn't want to die on the road.
Man.
It was a dangerous road. But anyways, yeah, that's my road bike story. So.
All right, cool. Well, I'm excited to see you if you ever come down here.
Yeah, dude, I'll do it.
Coming to Dallas like every day for the past like 6 months and he just never shows up. Like
my planes just didn't quite make it for whatever reason. They didn't come to the terminal, you know. I don't know what happened. Dude, okay, funny story on travel. Last story. My buddy, you guys know him, Logan. He was in an Uber coming to meet me at the rock climbing gym 2 nights ago. And he's in the Uber. He has to drive. He's like, hey man, like they were like, how you going? How's it going? Whatever. He's like, Logan asked the driver, do you like driving for Uber? And the guy goes, why would you ask me such a question? And then that's his response. And they just kind of sit there in silence. And Logan goes, I don't know, dude. Sorry, I didn't know that was like that. And then the Uber driver sits there in silence for a little bit, drives. He goes, you know what? I don't like your attitude, dude. I'm gonna stop, and you're gonna get out of the car. And then he stopped, and then Logan just kicked Logan out of the car.
What?
I don't know, dude. Yeah, I've never heard anything like that.
That's wild.
Yeah, so that's what happened to me. If in case you were wondering.
Oh, okay, got it. You were the Uber driver.
Yeah, dude, exactly. All right. this was fun. Guys, where can everyone reach out to you guys? This was a great podcast, by the way. I think there's a lot of like really unique ideas that you guys got to share that you've obviously been baking on. And Ben's been waiting to get on a podcast to share his thoughts. And honestly, dude, super good stuff from both of you guys. Super glad to have you guys on. Where can people find you and reach out to you guys if they have any questions?
For sure. I'm pretty active on IG. Hit me up at Investing with Ajay. So my name's Ajay, spelled A-J-A-Y. So Investing with Ajay.
Same for me. Also Instagram at Ben Pijanowski. Just how my name looks. BenPijanowski. And Chandler, appreciate you having us on. That was great. We had
just
a lot
how
of fun.
It looks, dude. Just how it sounds. Pijanowski. That sounds like Arabic or something. I don't even know. Just a bunch of squiggly lines, man. But anyways, this was great. I will talk to you guys soon, and excited for this one to go out. See y'all.
Appreciate it, Chandler.